Fall is one of my favorite times of the year. The air is crisp and fresh. I love to watch the leaves fall from the trees with such beautiful colors. My favorite holiday is Halloween. I live in an old 1800s home, in a very secluded area. I also have no neighbors. There is a lonely dirt road that leads to my home. Needless to say, I have never had a trick-or-treater. That is okay by me, though. I make my own Halloween. My home and yard are decorated to the max. I also have a yearly costume contest for all my adult friends. Everyone loves seeing the latest addition to my decorated house and yard. I plan for this year to be one of the best years I have ever had. What no one knows is that my family goes as far back as the colonial days. I have heard many family stories about the witch trials where we were murdered. Yes, you guessed it. I am a witch, and so were all the women before me in my family. It is not something that anyone knows for sure, and I will never tell. My pet is a very beloved black Persian cat. She is my loyal companion and protector. She is my familiar. She sees and hears all that happens around me. She gives me energy and calms me. For each Halloween season, I always start my outside decorating with pumpkins. I do not just go and buy them on the side of the road or in a store. No. I love to actually go to the pumpkin patch and find the perfect pumpkins that I will carve myself and surround my home. The pumpkins have to be perfect for their evil faces that I will carve into them and then light. My pumpkin flames never die until I am ready for them to go dark. Part of the wonderful art of magic. I spent many nights carving my pumpkins. There are about 50 or so pumpkins in all. The scarier their faces, the better I like. They just look evil when they are lit for all to see. You may think that 50 pumpkins would take forever to carve, but they do not, since I have nothing else to occupy my time other than spells and forecasting futures. I have my own business as a fortune teller. No one realizes that I actually know what is coming for them. Being a witch has its advantages. Always knowing what is coming and being able to heal as well. I hate to say that I have put many curses on a number of my enemies. Those are so much fun. People are clueless about what is happening to them. But I do. Pays not to make an enemy of mine. I have started doing less and less healing, and leaning toward the darker side of my craft to keep my powers strong in my youth. The outside of my home is very decorated, as well as the inside of my home. You already know of all the pumpkins, but there is so much more. I acquired a 9-foot air-inflated skeleton that glows in the dark last season and will use it again this year. Very eerie looking as you drive up my 2-mile driveway and are greeted with the skeleton. You just do not know what else you are about to encounter. Around the exterior of the home, I have a cemetery filled with headstones. People do not realize that these headstones came from some incredibly old cemeteries. I have moved them to my home over many years. Most of the cemeteries have been long forgotten. This is my little way of bringing them back to life. Not really to life. I am 90 years old. I have the appearance of a 20-year-old woman. That is the power of being a witch and a curse that was put upon me when I was a little girl. No one ever told me how conniving I would have to be to keep my youthful appearance. The headstones are placed in several areas to portray vast cemeteries. I put a spell on the yard to create a never-ending fog over the cemetery. Very scary and amusing to me to see the reactions that people have when they come within sight of the yard and house. I just love to see the look of horror on all their faces. Makes for such a good night for the costume party. I have ghosts floating around the yard. The actual bones are from their real graves. No one knows that these are very real spirits that I have called to appear each year. If I were a normal person, I would be terrified to get out of my vehicle. I assure that I have had a few potential guests tuck their tails and run in the other direction. I let the spirits in the cemetery act as they want. I only ask them not to hurt one of the spectators, at least until the party is over. Just one of my many spells that I cast for this special season. The inside of my house is also decorated for the occasion. I always make sure that my spell room is locked as well as my many potions. That is all I need for my secret to get out. I remember from my ancestors what happened to witches. We may not be burned at the stake or drowned anymore, but there are so many other ways to kill our spirit. My downstairs is decorated as an eerie castle. I have vampires, witches, and many other horror characters all around the rooms. The lighting is of red and green hue, depending on which monster is on display. I have called all my scary friends who are willing to come for their pleasure and pretend to be just characters. They love the chance to scare people and take one or more victims later in the night of the party. Dracula has his coffin that he stays in during the day. He comes out when the day turns into the night for our party. My werewolf friend is the hardest of all my friends to control. He always ends up turning several people into werewolves during the party. He just cannot be controlled when he changes form. I should not invite him to any of my future parties, but I just cannot seem to refuse him in his pleasures. Several of my witch friends also joined us for the night. They have their cauldrons and potions for the spells that they cast onto the unsuspecting guests. I find the behavior amusing and let them do their bidding. As long as I get what I need by the end of the night, to each their own as far as I am concerned. At about 9 at night, the guests start arriving. The costumes this year are great. The costumes have gotten better and better over the decades. People look like the creatures that they are portraying. There is a contest every year for the best costume at the end of the party. They think that they are going to get a big reward for their efforts. Little do they know what they are really in store for. Amusing and gullible is how people can be when they think that they are going to win something. We have an apple bobbing barrel that is filled with bright green and red apples. There is a special apple in that barrel for one person who is the luckiest to find that apple. A spell will be cast upon them. That person who finds the lucky apple will age exceedingly faster than normal. Their younger bodies will nourish mine for as many years as their human body survives. Everyone seems to have an excellent time. There is plenty to imbibe in and plenty to eat. I circulate the room to make everyone feel at ease. I am also looking at all the costumes and people in them to make my choice of who will be the sacrifice tonight. They have no clue that they really do not want to win my contest. At 11:00 in the evening, we will be choosing our costume winner. I have to have the soul by midnight. After that, I will have to wait another year for a chance to take another wood. I really do not want to wait, and so far, I have never had to prolong my process. Keeping my fingers crossed that this will be another good year for me. There are so many characters to choose from this year. We have a witch, vampire, Frankenstein, Red Riding Hood, a doctor and nurse couple, serial killers, pumpkins, ghouls, and so many more to choose from. I am having a really tough time deciding, and time is starting to run out for me. After much debate, I have chosen the witch as my winner. And no, not because I am a witch. She just really was convincing. Her makeup was done with a mole on her nose. Her dress was long and black and flowing around her body. She had a gat that was just like my hat. She also had her broomstick to ride. I will say that my broomstick is more authentic than hers, but it was still good. She had a poisonous apple in one hand that she had gotten out of the barrel. That would be awful if she were to take a bite of that apple before midnight. I am not sure that I will recover my youth at all, but instead perish from being so very old. That just wouldn't work for me. I announced the winner. She didn't seem surprised that she had won the contest at all. She is told that she has to wait for everyone to leave to collect her prize. She seems more than okay with my rules. I tell her that her prize is incredibly special, and for her eyes only. After everyone leaves, I call her to come before me to my cauldron so that she can claim her reward for her fantastic costume. She comes forward, and I tell her that this year is the best so far for the prize. I asked her does she wanted to lay her broom and apple down so that her hands were free to get her prize. She tells me that she is fine and will continue to possess her belongings. I tell her that is fine by me. As she walks towards me, she starts to laugh in a shrill tone and tells me that her costume is real, and she often wears it for occasions, such as my party. She keeps hysterically laughing. She tells me she is a powerful witch with souls to take. She is a beautiful woman indeed. I would love to steal her beauty and youth. She has thrown me a curve. I can already tell this isn't going to end well for me this year. She tells me that the apple in her hand is indeed the apple that she retrieved from the barrel that I had placed in the room. She tells me that she is also over 100 years old, and that she has heard that the winners of my yearly contest never return to their normal lives. No one knew of their destiny. She knew the prize because she also needed to capture a soul for her youthful age. She told me that she intended to gain her soul tonight instead of me. As she approached me, she took a small bite of the poisonous apple, knowing that she had already placed her own spell upon the fruit. She knew that she would not perish or go into a never-ending sleep from partaking of the apple. She laughed so hard, seeing the look on my face, knowing that my end was near. When she bit into the apple, I felt the life drain out of me, and I fell into a deep sleep. Sleep was the curse that I had put on the apple. I would remain in the comas for as long as she wanted. My body failed me, or until a soul she could take. My well-thought-out plan of many years has backfired on me. She would remain a beautiful woman, and not me. In the still of the night, the fire on the other side of the city billowed its smoke into the navy blue skies. Filbert Bowman's already knotted eyebrows further tied themselves together. He'd known it was significant when they'd woken him from his sleep with their call. But he saw the blazes on the city outskirts, where he lived in a cramped house with his wife and kids. That cemented the severity of the situation. Phil worried. To tell the truth, he felt petrified that all his research and hard work had gone up in smoke. If that were the case, he'd lose years. And Phil wouldn't have a hope of challenging Albion Cunningham for his spot at the top of the company ladder. To do that, he'd need to provide evidence of the truly excellent work he'd assured everyone he'd been doing. He couldn't say that every shred of his work had burned to cinders. It was the adult version of telling the teacher, "Your dog ate your homework." Phil gripped the wheel of his battered sedan, which he'd hoped to replace once he became Parasol's top dog. His knuckles turned white. He put the pedal to the metal and eased the old banger past the speed limit. A siren blared on the deserted main street as red and blue lights flashed in the night. Phil swore and hit the steering wheel with the side of his palm, sending needles of pain shooting up his arm. He'd pushed his luck, thinking nothing else could go wrong, but of course it had. And now the officer would pull Phil over and fine him, draining his poor bank account. He might even get points on his license. Wouldn't that be the kicker? And worst of all, it would delay him getting to the lab and surveying the damage. He flipped his indicator on to show that he was pulling over. The vehicle behind rushed towards him. Phil cringed. But a moment of inspiration hit him. What if he lied? He could tell the officer that his assistant, Theo Garner, was inside the burning lab. The officer might let him off in the case of an emergency. The fire engine blurred past, a streak of red in the sleeping city's gloomy blue hues. Phil grunted, a look of puzzlement on his face. He shrugged and canceled his signal. He slammed his foot down like an overzealous drummer hitting the kick drum. Indeed, Theo Garner was at the scene, but had escaped the burning building. He stood on the pavement, a clipboard and pen in hand. He squinted at the page by the firelight and scribbled between glances at the flames. Phil gasped for breath. It seemed for a second there that his spasming heart had leapt into his throat and seized there. He managed to drag down a breath, coughing on the smoke even through his closed windows. What had stolen the air from his lungs had been the site of what was now his old workplace. The Parasol Corporation's labs had gone trick-or-treating early, this late September evening. It seemed that the incognito gray building had come to the Halloween party dressed as the gates of hell. The charred skeleton of the lab's foundation stood, blackened, inside the conflagration. The outer skin had burned and peeled away to ashes. Various flaming scraps flickered through the air, bits of wood and paper. And the blazes burned with an eerie purple-green glow. Phil brought his car to a screeching halt, half on the pavement, half off. He leapt out of the vehicle, not bothering to shut the door behind him. "Theo!" he screamed. "Theo! What in the hell happened?" Theo raised his head at his master's voice like a good dog. He stopped writing and waved at Phil, smiling behind the thick lenses of his owlish glasses. "Good morning, Dr. Bowman. I didn't expect to see you here so early yet." He glanced at his watch. 2:45 in the morning. Phil clenched his teeth, causing an ache in his jaw muscles. He had no time for his vacant assistant's ditziness. He grabbed Theo by the ash-stained lapels of his lab coat. "Theo, what the hell happened?" Still in Phil's clutches, Theo shrugged and pulled a so-so face. The hellfires blazed in the reflection of his lenses, but in his eyes only a remote presence was there. He pointed with his ballpoint pen to the flames. "Fire," he said, surprised that that wasn't obvious. Phil let go of Theo a little too roughly. "I can see that there's a goddamn fire, Theo." He closed his eyes, unclenched his fists, and let out a long breath. He resumed at speaking volume. "I mean, how did the fire start?" Theo lit up. "Oh, that! Well, I forgot to check that the large-capacity centrifuge was balanced before I started it. It tore itself apart. Things that shouldn't come into contact with each other came into contact with each other." Phil tried to hold on to his temper. A muscle twitched beneath his left eye. "And what were you doing?" Theo clicked his pen, squinted into the fires, and then jotted something down. He seemed to have forgotten Phil was there. After a moment, he remembered. "Oh, I was watching," he said with a nod. Phil told himself to let it go. Murder could come later. Hell, once he was Parasol's prize-winning pig, he could hire someone to take care of that for him. Assuming, that he still had research somewhere in that building. He gazed into the hypnotic flicker of the blaze. "And the backup security system?" Theo made a quick note. "Failed." Phil staggered back, blinking as though Theo had struck him. The security system he'd established to save his work in worst-case scenarios had failed. And deep down, hadn't he already known? Those purple-green flames had a hue that was like the liquid in his vials. But now, the contents of said vials were no longer bottled, stored inside glove boxes. They were now burning, turning to smoke, drifting in a cloud, and, "My God," he whispered. Theo clicked his pen. "Yep, the zombie virus is out." Then the whole city. Aha! Ewan. Even we are. Correct, Duff. Phil ran a sweaty hand through his thinning hair. A ball of worms had begun to wriggle inside him, squirming and slithering through all his guts folds. The graveyard was next door. He'd never cared when residents had protested a pharma conglomerate setting up a lab here. They'd said it was sick of them to build on the same patch of soil in which they buried their dead. But if Parasol didn't set up base camp here, someone else would. But now, an awful thought was coming to him. The recently deceased. Theo made another note. Exactly. Only now, with dawning horror, Phil noticed what Theo was doing. Theo kept glancing at his watch and jotting down the times and observations. At the top of the page, he'd written 00 duh. His latest note was 37 0. All the times, thus far, had the accompanying note. No activity. I think, said Phil, that we ought to get out of here. I think that, maybe, A long wail punctured the night air as if on cue, from out of the curtain of smoke. Goosebumps prickled up all over Phil's body. Silhouettes appeared through that gray veil. At first, they were shadows, but as they shuffled closer, they grew into something more solid. Phil's heart raced faster than his car ever had. His breaths came in short, shallow stabs. Who could have known that creating a virus to resurrect the dead, turning them into mindless cannibals driven by the need to feed, would lead to this? He'd heard nobody got to the top without getting their hands dirty and leaving a few corpses behind. But this was ridiculous. Theo, he said, his voice sounding very small, like a boy's. Come on, get in my car. We're leaving. Theo's note-taking absorbed him. Ever since the first graveyard groan, he'd been scribbling on his sheets like a man possessed. He seemed unaware of the encroaching danger. Theo? Theo. Gaizun. DRL. But Theo was somewhere else, a dazed, happy expression upon his countenance. His tongue stuck out the corner of his mouth. He glanced up at the dead. The first few emerged from the smoke, coming into focus in all their ghastly glory. His eyebrows rose and he nodded. He was humming Thomas Dolby's "She Blinded Me with Science." Forget it. Phil wasn't going to stand here and wait for... Well, he'd seen what that one rat did to its cage mates. It hadn't taken long until they'd all succumbed to the virus, staggering around in search of fresh meat. At least Phil wouldn't have to murder Theo himself. Although in a way, he and the kid had murdered this entire city, if you thought about it. Phil didn't intend to think about it. The safe interior of his old sedan awaited, illuminated by the interior light. His trusty companion. Thank God he hadn't closed the car door when he parked. Phil scrambled for his car, tumbling into the seat and slamming the door shut as the first wave of zombies hit. The car rocked on its wheels as the walking dead surrounded it, pawing at the windows like cats at a piece of string. Beyond the grim gray faces, painted purple-green by the fire's glow, Theo was still jotting notes. He was still writing when a dead man dressed in his funeral best ripped out his throat. Theo continued to write, even as the undead swept him off his feet and opened his torso like a pack of gummy sweets. He only ceased his note-taking when a woman tore his writing hand clean from his body. Covered in a cold sweat, Phil shook his head and prayed to whatever gods might exist. Being a good scientist, he sent it to each primary one. Phil did it 3 times so that it would be statistically significant. Then he started his car, his old friend. Or at least, he tried to. His ancient old banger coughed, spluttered, and then died. Phil, panicking, hands slaked with sweat, tried the ignition key again. There was a dull click. His car was dead, and unlike the friendly folks excited to meet him, that chemical cloud couldn't revive it. Sobbing, Phil sunk into his seat as though he could hide from view down in the footwell. The undead pounded against the sedan's windows, leaving gooey, bloody smears. Phil didn't know how long the glass would hold. But it didn't matter. He'd inhaled the smoke. He was a dead man anyway. Or instead, he was an undead man. But at least Phil could rest easy knowing the fire hadn't destroyed his work. His work was alive-ish and well. Up and about. He'd worried that his project would have vanished and nobody would ever have known what he'd achieved. But he would get to claim credit for this. 3 facts to know about me. 1. I'm Ellie. 2. Whatever I do, it's not what you think. 3. I'm not crazy. There's no time left to tell this story. Help me spread the news. Such great news. Yeah. It's one of those horribly perfect days, announcing itself without worrying about repercussions that I will throw at it later. I think it's a fucking miserable day. I can't even catch sight of him, most likely due to the fact that an unending flow of tourists keeps getting spouted onto the street, ignoring the taxi drivers, who try to mow them down with their cars. The breeze kicks up, blowing my suffocating brown hair into my face. I brush it away irritably, scowling at a toddler that trips in front of me. Damn kid, move. So long as he stays there bawling up at his mom and asking to be held, I gripe out loud and wait. Nothing I can do to help. Not that I would ever want to. Shut the hell up, I growl, my knuckles aching from how hard I'm clenching my hands around the strap of my cloth bag. He continues to cry even as his mom whisks him up, out of danger, gives him a kiss, and walks away. If only you could save me too. I scold myself for even thinking it. Doesn't help to think about it. Why isn't he here? Danto put it bluntly. The boy I stalk always comes past here at 8:05 a.m., heading to God knows where, looking like a pitiable beaten puppy. Hair a mess of copper gold curls and alcohol. It's not hard to tell. His hideous mismatched clothes hanging off his lean frame, pocked with burns and holes. But it changes when they come. Every person from the day gets switched out. It's not like they go missing, they just shift. We're not talking about that though. I have a whole day to, crap, the word enjoy is so detestable, wade through before the real fear starts. Hey, what are you doing? Someone snaps, bringing every single fear to the forefront of my mind. Spinning around, I widen my eyes in actual surprise, because it's Dan, noticing me. But I put up what I hope ranks a good score on the clueless face scale than the actual wanton need I feel. Should I be doing something? No, don't come near. I want to gasp and shake him, to push him away quickly before they notice. But it's Dan. Don't make me. He's ratty and washed out like always, looking at me oddly. Odd like how someone would look at a rotisserie chicken after not eating for 2 days. Baby get Earl, what are you doing over there here? God, that is an attractive slur. And what the hell is he doing? Stay the fuck away from me, weirdo, I say with as much force as possible. He can never know. It's our first official meeting, and now I really hope it's our last. The urge to spread my guts for all to see, mostly him though, is a very inviting one. I won't. I can't. It's a good thing 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead. Though, did that one person who was left think about how agonizing it is to keep a secret, no matter how small? Obviously, I know everything about Dan, from what side of the bed he sleeps on, to how he's the most forgetful person ever, and trips over the step up into his bedroom every night, to how he brushes his teeth. Bess, you're so cute when you cuss. He smiles like a dork, and I barely stopped myself from oozing all the adorable vibes I'm feeling. Who does he think I am? And god damn it, repelling force, work. I try to think of something to say. I've always wanted to go over and talk to him. He's so imperfect that it's something I can't not love on the spot. He's also in danger by conversing with me. It's so unfair. They made me think I wanted this, and then banned me from the only thing I care about. I feel shunned by the population. How darkly ironic. Yeah, I forgot to say that no one is supposed to be able to see me. They did some type of demon incantation, leaving me incoherent for 3 days. I will forever obsess over those days. What was Dan doing during that time? What girls enjoyed his attentions for those nights? He grabs my hand, my rough against his soft, and reflex kicks in. I throw all my body weight toward him, twisting out of his light hold, even though such extensive actions aren't needed. He yelps, and I let out a strangled sob. Sorry for hurting you. Sorry for what I did. Stop it! Let me out! Please! I scream, snot mixing with tears, running away from my dreams and trying not to blame them. No one turns to look at me. They keep moving mechanically, smiling, conversing, and milling about, blocking my escape. Get out of my way. You don't understand. This is the end. Please let me have peace. Be grateful for me. I cry myself out eventually, up in a random apartment window seat that overlooks the road area Dan is currently on. He's slumped against a tree, legs sprawled out in front of him on the sidewalk, head in his hands. His shoulders are drawn inward, and they're shaking violently. Baby, no, please don't cry. My head pounds a beat, sounding like someone talking. I shake it hard, the pain increasing but the shivery feeling that accompanied it dispersing. Dan is sad about me. It makes my heart thump painfully. Love is supposed to hurt. Get used to it. Passers-by either look at him in disgust or concern, but never stop to check on him. I steel my spine and gather myself up, swiping away the tears clotted on my lashes, the salt water burning a paper cut I didn't know I had. They're coming for me soon. I feel it somewhere in between my heart and stomach. These are my last moments, and I am exuberant, but excruciatingly sad at the same time. Suddenly a thought jumps in my head and jams itself there, and I find that I have an unwavering want to follow through on the stupid action. If there's an after, I'll be happy there. Oh yes, I'll be very happy. I stumble through the room, tripping over a dog toy and fumbling frantically at the door. My exit. My freedom. I swing it wide, enjoying the damage it does to the wall for one moment before sprinting full tilt down the stairs, leaving it open to let whatever pet was inside free, too. Yes, 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 yes. The chant of the liberated. I screech over the swarm of people, desperate to catch Dan's attention, to let him know I wasn't going to leave him. Dan loves me. He called me baby. Said sweet things. We'll be so happy together. I let out a squeaky giggle while also trying to continue screaming so that he'll see me, running back to him. Like it always should have been. He knew who he was talking to. He saw me all along. All those women, he was trying to get me jealous, to get me to come and claim him. Of course. Dan looks up as I approach, alarm in his gaze. I throw myself at him again, but this time, I'm staying. Don't worry. I know. I know. I understand. No need to fear. He's holding me and it feels wonderful. His arms are warm and I feel his delicious muscles shifting as he pushes me away. I start to protest, but he slaps a hand to my mouth. Who are you? He looks very confused. I smile. He's playing it like I did earlier. He removes his hand for my answer, giving me the chance to slide closer. And I do. I slam our bodies together and bring his head down in one fluid movement, my mouth covering his. I sigh, and he takes my breath as soon as it's released, relaxing from his tense position. I'm liquid at the center, running my hands over his shoulders and tasting him on my tongue. One corner of his mouth is rough, a scar, I assume. I nip at it, making him draw back. I move backward with him even as he shoves me away, his face stunned. No, Saint, stop. Stuttering, he runs a hand through his hair, eyes wild. Blackness snaps across my vision and I fall, out of his reach. Reality clicking into place, insanity sucking back its arms. Oh, the horror, the dread, the crime. Brooke did it. What? He's trying to sound bewildered, but I see the realization dawn. Brooke did it, I whisper again, my butt throbbing from the impact of ass meeting ground in 3 seconds. I see them, crawling along the walls of buildings and gaining speed in my peripheral. I scream, clawing at my face. Get them off! I wail. Ellie, we're here to help you. They say with one voice, mouths gaping, like thick eternal darkness. Hey, bitch, what else do you know? Dan is shaking me, pleading with me. I ignore him because they're here. What will they do? Why did I never ask these questions? When did I become stupid like the rest? Ellie, your secret is spent. Your time is up. And suddenly I'm calm. It spreads over me, seeping into every inch of my skin, filling my mind with blissful control. Dan sees my change in expression and continues insisting something with more urgency. But it doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. The words barely reach me. Did you do it? Was it you? Tell me where. Dan, shut up. They laugh. I smile. I see now. Dan never wanted me. It was them, helping me understand. It wasn't manipulation. Dan is annoying, choking on his tears and words. I just want an answer. Ellie, join us. They're good. Yes, they're good. No. I giggle, warming to the idea. I'm not crazy. Leave me alone. Yes. No. They don't deserve to be protected. Leave me alone. I raise the knife and stab down. It's all I ever dreamed of. Blood spraying, splattering me, splattering the sky. The clouds bleed. The sun implodes. The crimson pieces fall around me, slicing the ground. Voices in my head sing to me. The figures on the wall retreat, and I listen to the song they create for me. A shrill, high-pitched keening. A song of pain and of death. Oh, look at the frame on this one, Margaret said, running her hands down the gold-painted finish. The mirror she admired was in an old antique shop in the mountains. Every mountain town was the same. 1 or 2 ice cream shops, a saltwater taffy store, a mountain chocolate shop, a couple of western bars selling bison or venison for the adventurous eaters, and an antique shop. The quality of these shops varied, but after a long dry spell of antique hunting, Margaret seemed determined to purchase something today. Yeah, the frame is okay. I picked up the mirror to look for a price tag, but the glass is distorted. We'll have to replace the mirror part, and it's $100. Okay, let's keep looking. That was found up in the old Maginty ghost town, came a gruff, deep voice from behind. Turning, we saw a tall, rotund man. We assumed to be the shopkeep. He wore overalls and flannel, which I assumed to play up the appearance of hillfolk, in a sea of Columbia and Burton-clad snow bunnies. "Just came in this morning," the lumbering shopkeep continued. "Don't know much about it, really. A local family found it about a week ago, but they got creeped out by it, so they dropped it here. McGinn had people in it for more than 100 years. The quality doesn't look great. My wife Margaret always tried to drive a bargain." "Well, with antiques you're buying the story, ain't ya?" the shopkeep countered. "Tell you what, $50, and it's yours." Margaret's face lit up like we had won the lottery. "Wrap it up. Well, take it." Some newspaper and tape wrapping concealed our prize as we made our way back to the car. The past year had been rough on us. We were new empty nesters as our second kid had traveled across the country to college last year. Margaret said that it was our time now, but we seemed to be filling that void with arbitrary things. A new dog, a new job, and the redecoration of our suburban house in the foothills. We still sometimes called each other Mom and Dad, as we did when the kids were in the house. "It will look great in the hallway, don't you think?" Margaret said as I placed our parcel in the back seat. I drove the 2.5 hours back to our house. My wife smiled in her sleep as she basked in the sun's warmth of the late afternoon. She looked like a 45-year-old angel. We had a pretty good life to this point. Soon we would have to realize that the kids would not be coming home. They would be living their own lives, and our involvement in their lives would be less and less. It was dark as we pulled up to our cottage. Roscoe was glad we were home. He tried his best to get all the other dogs in the neighborhood to join him in his welcome. The dogs on either side of our home joined the chorus. "Please let Roscoe out," Margaret said. "I am going to take a shower." I placed our mirror on the dining room table, still fully wrapped. We had not used the table since the kids left. Now, it was a place for pre-projects and half-completed tasks. "Out you go, Roscoe," I said as I opened the back door to the yard. I went to the kitchen to see what we might have left over, and Roscoe was back waiting for dinner. Margaret was already in bed by the time I got upstairs, so I showered and decided to read for a while. I got into bed and turned on the small reading light, but a wave of nausea overcame me, and I turned off the light to sleep. Roscoe had gotten into the habit of needing to touch both of us during his sleep, so sometimes you would have his feet in your back, and sometimes you might have his nose breathing right into your ear, but it was always unpleasant. I drifted off. Dynamite Maurice. I started awake. It was daylight. I was in a mountain glade. The aspen were just turning yellow. Winter was coming. There were 8 small wooden structures along either side of a rutted road. High peaks surrounded us. All these structures were just unpainted wood with either a door or a window on each side. "What the hell do you want?" came a voice from behind. I spun around to see a wiry, short man in red long johns slamming an outhouse door. He had not seemed to notice me, but stomped by to the nearest house. "Buck, just get your ass up to our claim. Ain't no use worrying about women. Once we strike, women are gonna find us," the Long Johns man shouted back. I assumed that was Maurice. At a far cabin, 3 men made their way out and started up the mountain. They were too far away to hear, but you could tell from their mannerisms that they were not on friendly terms. Dog feet in the small of my back brought me back to my bed. Roscoe was doing his best to push both Margaret and me off to the floor in his sleep. Between the dream and Roscoe, I knew that I'd be up for a bit. A glass of iced tea seemed like it would be welcome, so I went down to the fridge. I would have sworn that there was a slight glow from the dining room as I walked by. I squeezed my eyes tight to chase away the sleep, and nothing seemed unusual when I looked in the room. The nausea returned in the kitchen, and I sat at the small kitchenette with my head in my hands. "Maurice!" I glanced around the kitchen. Fucking dream, I said to no one. Hey, honey, I heard Margaret from upstairs. Yeah, in the kitchen. Can you bring up some water? I just had the weirdest dream. Yep, give me a minute. I knew that this mirror had nothing to do with my dreams or nausea. But we all don't think straight at 2:30 in the morning. I was determined to get the mirror into the basement, as far away from our bed as possible. I made my way to the dining room and then to the top of the basement stairs. I needed to brace myself on the railing all the way down to the basement, my nausea increasing step by step. There in the basement, the glow behind the newspaper wrapping was unmistakable. If I did not get away, I would be vomiting. So I propped the mirror on the floor and left. It must be the gold paint, I told myself as I made my way back upstairs. Or maybe I am just imagining the whole thing. My head cleared some as I made my way to the second floor. Margaret was sitting up in bed on her phone when I came in. I handed her the water. McGinney was a prospecting town, Margaret told me. A little silver was found, but people started disappearing, and people started avoiding the town. Some said that claim jumpers killed everyone. Everyone was killed right about the same time. Yeah, why are you looking up McGinty? I just had a very realistic dream. A small town up in the mountains, malevolent force, very creepy. Was Maurice there? I joked. What? Why would you say that? I just had a similar dream. Maurice and Buck were in it. Margaret pulled her knees up to her chest. Oh my God. Do you think that the mirror is theirs? Oh, come on, Margaret, you can't be serious. I saw Buck, a huge, hulking, hideous man. He was planning to kidnap some women from a neighboring town. If you want, we can take the mirror back to the antique shop in the morning and make someone else deal with it. Okay, I said. Maybe we can hike back up into McGinty and drop it there, or just hit it with a hammer. It's just creepy. I got into bed and cuddled with Margaret. She shivered. How is your head? I asked. I've been feeling a little woozy. Yeah, me too. Let's get some sleep. When I woke in the morning, Margaret was up with a cup of coffee at the kitchen table. Where's Roscoe? She said as she took a sip of coffee with a slight slurp. I don't know. Did you let him out? I think I would know if I let him out. I grabbed Roscoe's bowl and scooped some dry food. That would bring him. Nothing. Roscoe? I looked in the yard trying to find where he might have gotten out. I looked upstairs. Nothing. Maybe he's in the basement, Margaret said. The nausea returned. Okay, I will go look. The nausea was not as bad as the night before. Maybe we had eaten something bad yesterday. Roscoe, I called as I inched down the stairs. Roscoe. Margaret called from behind me. At the bottom of the stairs, the mirror remained. The newspaper was sagging, and part of the mirror exposed. Roscoe? I avoided the mirror to check the rest of the basement. I rounded the stairs to check on the other side. Hey, Marg, Roscoe isn't here. Oh, you put the mirror down here. I could hear Margaret at the bottom of the stairs. Oh, God, Margaret said. There was a flash of light and silence. Marg? I ran up the stairs. Marg? I ran up to our bedroom. Marg? All right, Buck, you want to play this way? I grabbed my Taurus 9mm from my bedside and ran down to the basement. Buck, I'm coming for you, as a rage crept up the back of my skull. I ripped off the newspaper from the gilded mirror, and there was a blinding flash. Content notice. This story contains metaphorical and hypothetical declarations by a character to harm themselves and others. and focuses on a toxic relationship. It also contains a couple of suggestive, albeit non-explicit sentences. January 1st. I've decided to journal our relationship. Every romance that came before you was a whirlwind. By the time my friend pulled me out, I felt drained, like more had been taken from me than I had offered. So this time, I'm going to document every moment of our time together, to remind my future self not to fall for the likes of you. Like I have already. I want you. You're all I can think about. I've known you but one day, and I feel the need to devote every second of my life to you. I should have quit before you came to me, but you were too witty, too exciting, too beautiful to ignore. What? So I began writing you, just a little something to get you talking the next day, then went to bed while everyone else partied. I imagined you popping open a bottle of champagne as I drifted off. Some of it gets on you, wrinkles you. I woke up with your words already in my head. You called for me, and I answered. You poured your heart out to me, and every word of it charmed me. From 7 in the morning to 2 at night, I wrote everything that flowed from you through me, and though our dialogue spans only a day, I feel like I know every one of your details, every path you will walk. Yet, I know better. My reason tells me not to trust you, because mysteries like you are subject to sudden changes in mood and are full of unpleasant surprises. Doubly yet, what is better than a romance, but a mystery romance? January 7th. I have scarcely slept an hour in the past week, staying up past dawn with you. For every word I write, you have a dozen more waiting for me. And I don't mind that at all. I know you don't give a damn about what I want to tell you, and I'm content saying what you want me to say. January 8th. I'm angry. I'm angry at you, because I had a date with Diane and missed it because you wouldn't let me go. She called and asked where the hell I was, and it took every gram of self-control to pull myself away from you, only to tell her I was bailing on her. January 9th. I need you. February 5th. Diane called me. If your new project is so important that we cannot have our weekly girls' night anymore, I hope you write your happily ever after, because I am not waiting around to see if your dream comes true. Do not try to contact me. And then she hung up. She and I have been close since kindergarten. Were. And now, I feel like I've lost a sister. I've lost her. I can't believe I've lost her. 35 years of faithfulness and loyalty. And now she's toppled a monument to friendship. Call. No. I toppled it. Because I've decided you're more important than she is. February 6th. I feel better after last night. Your story and your intimacy cheered me up. But I know the only reason you went in that direction was because I needed a bit of escape. Someday, when I come to grips with what I've lost, with your insatiable need for struggle and intrigue, your story will change. You won't be so reassuring. So I'm just going to lie to myself. I'm going to tell myself that losing the most important person in my world will be worth it. March 4th. You've been wonderful to me. Thank you. I haven't seen or heard from her in 4 weeks. I can't stop crying. Even with you. Even with the infinitude of places I can explore with you. Even with all the ways of making love I've researched and tested within you. Nothing you have to offer me can replace her. March 11th. I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I texted her. No response. I tried Messenger. Blocked. Now see. Twitter. Blocked. Docked. This is the cost of taking your words to heart. March 18th. I called Andrea. Asked about Diane. She's fine. Is she there? Yes. Can I talk to her? We're busy, Christine. Oh, I need to get back to what we were doing. Can you ask her to call me? But the line was already dead. April 1st. 8 weeks without Diane. I've accepted I'm never going to see her again. Thank you for being here for me, for easing the pain and the loneliness. You have a dozen unique characters within you, each of them compelling, if occasionally raw or unpleasant. I don't mind your flaws. I'll fix you. April 2nd. I'm still not over her. I cried. I isolated myself in my room. You didn't do anything to help. I was so lonely, and you, the one I turn to for comfort nowadays, were on my computer screen, waiting for me to come to you. You've never known loneliness. You're selfish. I don't want to see you again. May 5th. I haven't seen you in a month. She finally responded, to tell me to stop trying to get a hold of her. I said I had decided to leave you half-finished, that I was completely over you. We talked for the first time in 3 months. It was refreshing. For all the words you have, I know damn well you tell anyone else the same damn things you've told me. And you don't listen. You're incapable of listening. You can only tell me what I want to hear, what I want you to say. She listens. And she told me the truth. Something I already knew but couldn't bear hearing from someone else. You're bad for me. As long as I'm writing you, I won't be satisfied until everyone knows what you want them to know and wonder what you want them to wonder. Until they've suffered through your twists and turns. And if you ever got to that point, I'd want our relationship to bear fruit. I wouldn't stop at just one either. I would wring every drop of inspiration out of you to satisfy my need to create. I would keep pumping them out until I was either physically or mentally incapable of producing more. I would love every one of them as much as I love you, and I would lose myself in them the same way I lost myself in you. In case my words aren't clear, this is it. You're going in the recycle bin. June 3rd. I'm disgusted with myself. I started thinking about you. I remembered all the good things you've done for me, just how sexy you can be, how romantic, how exciting, how easy it is to get lost in you. And I can't abandon something 3/4 of the way to completion. I can't resist the temptation to go all the way with you, to see you bound, to see your spine curve as I spread you open and explore the pleasures within you, even if that means risking a lifelong friendship, which by the skin of my teeth, I rescued from the fireplace. We've been best friends all over again for 4 weeks. Once I promised to remove every scrap of you from my life and throw them in the recycle bin. I couldn't keep away from you for the whole 30 days, and here you are, waiting faithfully for my return. Just a day short of disappearing from my life altogether, forever. Forever. Forgotten. I worked so hard to get my sanity back, and I endured so much heartache for so long, only to throw it all away and come crawling back to you. I wish she understood just how much I need you. You are my fantasies made as real as they can be. June 9th. No one compares to you. Not even her. June 10th. My heart only has room for you, but she claimed a space for herself long ago. As much as I want for you to be my everything, as much as I wish to devote every waking moment and every fevered dream to you, my love, I could not withstand losing her a second time. You don't want to witness my heartbreak. You suffer as I suffer. We are one, and have been from the beginning. So you understand that I must give up a few hours each Monday to placate her. June 11th. When I was with her last night, I could think only of you. June 24th. I can't stand my time with her, because I am away from you, because I am forced to socialize with someone who tried to tear us apart, to erase you from my life, because I know that if I so much as mention you, she will abandon me again. She has power over me. The only one I want to control me is you. She pulls on the strings of loyalty, manipulates me with guilt, and presses the point of her knife to my chest to coerce me to abandon the love you and I have built. I am compelled to do as she says, even as she does nothing for me in return. I am guilt-ridden when I have done nothing wrong. And in spite of all our time together, she is ever ready and willing to resect my heart once more, and this time bury it in the landfill. Please don't misunderstand me. I wouldn't kill myself over her. I would only do that for you. If it would magnify your beauty or wit or intrigue, anything is within the realm of my will. Because your desires are mine, your accomplishment will be thanks to my devotion and industry. If it might make you beloved and popular, I would sell my soul. If it would make you more perfect, I would gut you, and with what I harvest from your carcass, compose a new you. July 1st. She made a comment about you, and it took all of my self-control not to strangle her. I do not wish to repeat her words with the mouth I would use to kiss you, or the fingers I would use to touch you. If only you were before me in the flesh. But this journal is for me to remember, so I must record the precise reason I am about to cut her out of my heart and feed her to the wolf. Christine, she said with a gentle smile so soft that it could smother one in slumber, I am so relieved that you rid yourself of that vile waste of time. You are a professional and a lady. You are better off not being associated with vulgar trash. You are an artist and a celebrity. You have standards. She has power over me. I must take it back. July 3rd. Christine, began Diane, let me get this straight. After begging me to accept you back into my life, you called my spouse and told her I have been having multiple affairs with my subordinates. Yes, and? Are you insane? Did I lie to her? Did I leave anything out? Why the hell are you trying to ruin my marriage? You called my passion vulgar trash. Oh my God! The betrayal, the shock in her voice were bitterly insulting, but all the more delicious. You've been screwing around with that boorish waste of half a year of your life, haven't you? Boorish? My love is the most witty, sophisticated, and charismatic magnum opus to have ever visited me. My love, you are deluded. You speak as though that wordy refuse is a human being. You've fallen head over heels for a lie you tell yourself when you're feeling insecure about your abilities, when you ought to be writing respectable books for your publisher to fill shelves. I'm in a happy relationship. You're sick. You need help, but I'm done trying to give it to you. This is the 8th time you've fallen for your own screwed-up need for a screwed-up romance, and I don't want to see your self-absorption hurt you again. I love you like a sister. It kills me to see you go through this yet again, after you promised to abandon this trash that's going to screw up your career. Her voice strained under wretched envy that would never see resolution as she concluded, Chrissy, go screw yourself. I've accomplished precisely what I aimed for. She is no longer a part of my life. Everything she had to say until now mattered far more than it should have. Her words were always poison in my ears. I don't have to hear her insult you ever again. You are everything to me. I will not stop until you have everything you need, until you are the pinnacle of creativity. I will share you with the world. My publisher is going to love you.